Hey everyone, welcome. We'll just wait for a few people to jump in, and then we can get things kicked off. Hey, for those of you coming in, we'll just wait for a few more people to jump in. We're right at the hour mark here, so we'll just get started shortly. Cool. Looks like we have a quorum. I can start just by introducing, and then people will fly in. So my name's Connor. I'm on the product team here at Koyfin. To the left or the right of me is Rob. He's the founder and CEO of Koyfin. Today I'll be presenting, and Rob will be in the background answering any of your questions. We do have a Q&A section at the end, but if you have any questions that pop up mid-webinar, feel free to use that Q&A button down at the bottom, and Rob will be on hand to answer any of your questions or leave some of them for the Q&A if he thinks they'll be interesting to answer live. So today's focus for this webinar is going to be the watch list. So it might seem like one of the more quote unquote basic features of Koyfin, but I think it's one of the most underappreciated. I often say that it has the kind of Pareto principle inside of Koyfin. And if you really spend time building some watch lists, it powers about 80% of the platform. It is the true Swiss Army knife of the Koyfin feature set, and there's a lot of stuff you can do in there. And I think a lot of times people won't realize you can do a lot of stuff with Watchlist. So the focus of today's webinar is going to start from zero, some of the basics around creating a watch list, showing you how you can use CSV import or copying things from ETF Holdings. We're going to discuss the concept of watch list views and how to optimize those. We're going to show you some examples of different types of watch lists that you can build for different asset classes. I'm going to go over my 3 top features for the watch lists. And then we're going to come to the areas that you can use watch lists in.
Hey everyone, looks like Connor accidentally disconnected. So this is going to be one of those. Oh, he's logging back in. Let's see.
Oh, hey everyone. Not sure what happened there. I disappeared for a second. But I'm back. I'll backtrack a little bit just in case we missed something. So we're going to go over loads of examples of what kinds of watch lists you can build for various asset types. I'm going to go over my 3 top features for the watch list. And then we're going to jump into the areas that you can actually utilize watch lists in as well. We'll fly through those because there's a lot of them. And at the end, we're going to save a nice chunk of time for some live Q&A, which is always super fun. So I'm going to jump in and share my screen. So we're going to start from the basics, and then we're going to quickly work our way up. And the first thing, the easiest thing is just creating a watch list. So I want to show you a few different ways that you can do that. And the first one is just building one from scratch. So you can see up here, here's all the watch lists that I've created before. I'm going to walk through, maybe boring for some people, but I'm going to walk through the different components just so that everyone benefits. So the first thing I'm doing is press this plus button, and we have a few options. We can import a CSV, which we'll get to in just a moment. There's a bunch of templates here as well if you're looking for inspiration as to what kinds of watch lists that you can build, or you can just create a blank one from scratch. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to call it Connor's watch list. And the first thing we have here are a bunch of columns. We have nothing in here, and then we have some other buttons and doodads going on up here as well. So before we even add any tickers, I'll just quickly run through what all of this stuff is. This is the column picker. So you'll be able to go in here and then choose from a broad library of columns to add to your table. We'll get to that in just a moment. These are summary rows, which we'll also get to when we populate the watch list, which allow you to add, percentiles and ranges and weighted averages. This is the grouping function. Again, we'll jump into that as well. And you can also use the sorting or the kind of currency presentation as well. So first things first, let's just add a bunch of tickers in here. Doesn't have to be anything super interesting, just so we can populate it. So now we have our tickers. You can see that Koyfin is populating all the data for those tickers based on your column selection. Maybe we don't want these columns in our table. We want to pick something a bit more interesting. Let's go ahead and go to the column picker. So here you can use the search bar if you're interested in price to sales, for example, you can just type that in and you can select it, choose your basis. Let's go forward basis, and we can also rearrange all these columns here as well as delete some of the ones we're not interested in, like short interest, EV to sales, whatever your preference is there. Alternatively, if you're maybe more new to Koyfin or you don't know what you're looking for and you just want to browse through the data, on the left-hand side here, you have a bunch of options. So you have kind of price data, you have technicals, you have security level information, such as region, primary security. You have asset-specific items for equities, ETFs, and mutual funds. And you also have the financial section, which is going to cover everything from CAGR rates, margins, anything you would expect to see on a financial statement, and then valuation multiples as well. Down here, you have analyst estimates. So whether it's forward estimates on a notional basis or a percentage basis, we'll show you those. Price targets, you've got ratings in there as well. You can get really granular with the types of ratings in there as well as the price targets. And then we also have estimates revision down there as well, and percentile ranks. So if you've used the percentile rank snapshot before, you'll know that's a unique feature to Koyfin. Really great. It shows you the percentile ranking of a company's, whether it's, I don't know, gross margin or PE ratio relative to the sector it trades in or its own history as well. So that's how you can select the data in here. We'll build some more comprehensive watch lists in a bit. We'll just focus on the basics for now. Some things that you can do in here, you can rearrange all of these columns as well if you want to. You can rename them. If you want to right click on the column header and you want to change sector to the word egg, you can do so. Just try and remember what it was called initially. Even if you forget, you can just right click on this and see the original name of the column at any point. You have summary rows here as well, which I alluded to earlier. So we have this basket of securities here. We want to see what the average forward PE ratio is. If we go to summary, we can find that pretty easily by going to average. And now along the bottom here, we're going to break out all the averages. So we can see the forward PE mean is 37.5. We can see the forward PS is just shy of 8. And if at any point you're not interested in this, like you don't want to see the mean last price of these securities, you can right click and you can hide it. Some other things you can do here as well. We mentioned grouping might not be as effective with such a small basket of companies, but if we go sector here, it's going to break that table down by sector, and I can hide those as well. And the nice thing is that these summary rows apply to your groupings as well. So we can see in the infotech sector, the average P is 39 compared to the sole entrant for the communication services, which is about 20. And at any point, if you're interested in taking this data elsewhere, you can download it like that, and it will print it out in the format that you've got it presented in. And you can also share this as well, but we'll get to sharing in just a little bit. So that's the basics. We are going to come back to all of this stuff, but I want to show you some other ways that you can quickly create watch lists that don't involve doing it, manually. So the first one is ETF Holdings. So down here on the left-hand side, I'm currently filtered for QQQ, which is Invesco. We have some great snapshots for ETFs. My personal favorite is the holdings page. So we break down the holdings, the weightings, the contribution. There's a couple of ways that you can quickly turn these into watch lists. One of them is, I'll go ahead and download this for now just so it's there. One of them is CSV upload. So if you have a CSV, you can upload that into a watch list. The other one is you can just simply save as watch list. And let's go ahead and call this QQQ. We'll create new. And now when I click this, I just have a ready-made QQQ watch list at the click of a button, which is pretty handy. Alternatively, if we have a CSV, I'm going to use that QQQ one that I just downloaded. So it'll be the same, but if we had a CSV populated with securities that we were interested in, we could also do that as well. So if I go to create new and I want to import a CSV, we'll go QQQ2.1 because I duplicate that one. Let's go upload CV. We will drop this file in here. We have all the information there. You can check through that if you want. At this point, I'll go previous. At this point, if you have like portfolio level data in here, like quantity, average cost as well, if that's in the CSV, you can select the column header that has that. I've not set it up to do that. I'm just quickly, populating them. So I'm just going to go and select the ticker here. We'll go next. You'll see all these average cost items are empty. It's because I've not added them to the CSV, but if you do, we will suck those in as well and put them into your watch list for you. And I'm going to submit that. It will get processed. And then one last verification, and we have our QQQ watch list. So 2 ways pretty quickly to do that. Some other ways, if you have a watch list that you like the setup of, or you like most of the components in it and you just want, for whatever reason, if you want to duplicate a watch list, if you could look at this little down arrow here, you're going to be able to do that as well. So here's a bunch of share cannibles, and maybe I want to make some changes to it. I can create that as new as well. So that's one other way. One that maybe not many people know about, if you go to the market dashboards and you like the look of the data that we're presenting in here, you can also save these as watch lists instantly too. And the last one is the screener. So here we can see that I've created a criteria for Japanese growth stocks, and I'm interested in doing more with this. I can play around with the settings in Screener and just leave it in Screener if I want, but alternatively, I can also save this as a watch list too. So let's go ahead and create that. And now, in a flash, I have that as a screening output, and I can quickly just spit that out into a watch list. And why this is so useful and underrated, I think, and we'll get to this at kind of the end of the webinar, when you've created something as a watch list, you can genuinely just suck it into loads of other features inside of Koyfin. So we'll come back to that in just a bit and you'll see the relevance of it. But now that we've kind of figured out the basics of how do you create watch lists, we'll get into structuring them as well. But I want to talk about views for just a second because views are really powerful. So a watch list view is essentially a format of a table that you like, and maybe you want to have multiple views for the table at the basket of securities. So this one is just the one I took in from the screener. So I'm just going to call this Japan view. Now we have a few options here. If I want to create a new view, but I want to keep this one at the same time, I go up here and select new, let's say Japan view 2. I can create a brand new one and start from scratch and go through the process of adding all my columns. When you first kind of start in Koyfin, that's probably the process that you go through. But if you've already built nice views that you like in other watch lists and you want to apply those to watch lists without duplicating the work, you can actually import those views as well. So let's go back to that view picker here, and I'm going to go on import new and import table views. So here's a watch list. Let's go to portfolio. This has a bunch of views that I've made before and I really like them. So I'm going to take analyst ratings and price targets. I might take price target history, and I might take total return. And we're just going to import all of those views. Let's go to total return. So we can see now this is going to populate all the data that's available for all of these Japanese securities. I might want to add name in here as well. If I go to analyst ratings and price targets, it's just going to give me that view that I've already created. And it's, I don't have to duplicate the work as well. Alternatively, you can, whenever you duplicate a watch list, if I pick one that actually has some views in it, global rates, FTSE, sorry, I have so many watch lists here. Okay, so this is portfolio. It has loads of views in it. If I go ahead and duplicate this, it's actually going to duplicate all of those views along with it. So portfolio 2. And you'll see that now this is a duplicate, but it still has all of those views in it. So if I wanted to just click this button here, which is going to highlight everything, I can bulk delete everything in here. And I can refresh, put all the new tickers in it, but I still have all of the views. So that's kind of like a quick workaround for that. So some examples of the types of things that you can build in watch lists. I think people use them in many different ways. I'm always super fascinated to see how people use their watch lists. This one that I showed you earlier is kind of a portfolio-centric view. So we can see these are my imaginary holdings. These are the shares that I've added independently. So in columns, we have a bunch of portfolio tools here where you can input your cost basis, and your weightings and all that kind of stuff, and we'll calculate the weightings for you. So here's all of the shares for my portfolio. We can see down here that I have a weighted average summary row, which is going to be giving me all those weighted averages for the metrics that I'm interested in. Here we have a couple of custom labels, which we're going to get into slightly later. It allows me to kind of break down the brokerage that I own these securities in. We've got some ETFs down here as well. Here's the weightings, some flags. Next earnings date, again, another custom label. And then this is a custom kind of quote box or note box that allows me to add my own notes. So if I pull that along, I can write, if I pull that along here, I can write some kind of longer sentences and just refresh my memory when I'm looking at it. Let's pull that back. And some other views that you might want to build. This is similar, same basket of stocks, but it removes all that kind of portfolio level data and just replaces it with some forward earnings multiples, as well as some forward estimates and the margin breakdown. This one is that one I showed you earlier with the analyst ratings and price targets. So we can break out the number of buy, hold, sell, strong sell ratings. We have the number of ratings, and then we also have some price target data here. This price target history just gets a bit more granular into the price targets, and it just breaks them down by 3 months, 6 months, 1 year ago, and the current price target as well. And we also have some ranges there. This one, multiples, does what it says in the tin. It just gives me all the multiples that I'm interested in. So we've got some forward and trailing earnings with their percentile ranks. We've got EV to EBITDA, EV to EBIT, buyback yields, everything like that. And yeah, I think that's about it for the portfolio level. And if you might also want to build something that looks like this, which is not equity focused, it's focused on funds, specifically the Bitcoin ETFs that were issued or approved, I should say, by the SEC in January. I think there's 11 of them. I'm quite interested in tracking the flows of those. So here's just all of those ETFs. Here's the flows on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly basis, expense ratios, some notes there as well, and the AUM. BlackRock's IBIT is just kind of dominating there. This one here is an S&P watch list. It's basically just pulling in all the constituents of the S&P. And we've got some, return on invested capital, NOPAT, invested capital in here as well. And I'm grouping these by industry, I believe. Yeah. So I can quickly just kind of flick through these. I can see that semis has a average ROIC of about 20% compared to media and services 24, pharma 12. So you can quickly summarize all of these different industries. Super great for that, parsing through a lot of data. This one is just ETFs, and it has a bunch of valuation data for the ETFs. I think they're US ETFs in this watch list. And again, they're bucketed by their kind of size and style. We've got broad equity in here as well. Just being able to parse all of that data. And this one here is country inflation, so more of a macro focus. In this column here, it's headline inflation on a year-over-year basis. And we've got the current reading, the 1 month ago and the 1 year ago, and the trend versus the last reading, which is a custom label here. Here we have month over month, and we have core in there as well. Just a great way to kind of keep on track of stuff, and it's just updates throughout the day. So there's a few examples of what we can build, and we can certainly get into more of those in the Q&A section as well. But I want to highlight 3 of my favorite features in Koyfin, which I think Koyfin Watchlist specifically. So let's go back to the portfolio watchlist here. Number 1 is sharing. I think sharing is really underrated. If you're building something, it doesn't have to be portfolio centric. Maybe that's personal. If it's like that macro dashboard that I created, the company inflation one, if I want to share this with someone, I can click this share button here, and you can see that I've already shared it with Rob at Koyfin. He's a viewer, so he can only view what I'm doing and the changes that I'm making in real time, but he can't edit anything. If I want to change him to an editor, then we can kind of collaborate on this, and he can, write notes in it using that custom label text box. He can also change things around and move the positions. And if I get annoyed at him doing that, I can actually just revoke his access, and now he no longer has access to this watch list. So sharing, super underrated. I think it's really great for working in teams, or if you just want to kind of build a community around a watch list that you're building. The next one is Watchlist News. This is something I personally use every day. This is FYI, this isn't my actual portfolio, but I use it to track my own portfolio in Koyfin, and it's a very simple feature, but it just does what it does really well. So this is the basket of companies that I'm interested in. I don't care about anything else to some extent. I just want to focus on what these guys are doing. Hit this news button, and it's going to give me a tailored feed of transcripts, filings, press releases, and news for this basket of companies. I was pretty focused this morning, so I just wanted to read transcripts and filings. Now, let's say I want to kind of introduce a bit more noise into that diet. I might turn the news filter on. I might turn the press release filter on. And now you're going to see that this feed is going to get a lot more populated. I can flick through these and read them. So tap to pay is now available on PayPal. That's great if you're a PayPal shareholder. NVIDIA released a press release this morning. That would be awesome as well. Really great. And you can also filter out some of the news sources and types that you're not that interested in. So if I'm not interested in corporate events, I can just turn those all off if I want to. Similar with filings, I usually personally turn ownership filings off. I just find them to be a bit noisy and they clog up the feed, but you obviously can keep them on. And the last one is custom formulas. So to show you this, I'll just create a brand new one from scratch. So custom formulas are a really powerful tool inside of the watch list. And it basically allows you to build, aside from custom labels, the formula aspect of it. If we don't have a data series that's native inside of Koyfin, like stock-based comp adjusted free cash flow, for example, that's not something that you could just pick out of the data picker and then have, unfortunately. But you could build it yourself because we have all of the variables for it. So custom columns and labels here. I'm going to go ahead and create a formula. Let's call it free cash flow margin X stock-based comp. We need 3 data series here, which is free cash flow. We'll just do everything on a trailing basis, stock-based comp. And we want to make this comparable to revenue. So there's our variables. Now we just need to express these as a formula. So A take away B divided by C. And we want to show that as a percentage, as a margin. So now we've created that, we'll click it, and Koyfin is just going to calculate that for us, which is awesome. Some other things in here as well, which I know I say everything in Koyfin is underutilized, but I really do feel like labels particularly are just so great. So let's take this one and we'll call it, actually we already showed you the brokerage, let's call it ratings. You can really just do whatever you want with these. It's always interesting to see how people use them. But in this context, for example, let's say that we're using this to assign conviction ratings to this basket of stocks that we're interested in. What we're doing here is type in, 1. That means we now have a label that's associated with 1. We'll just go all the way through to 5 or 5. Okay, so we have our ratings. If you want, you can color code these as well pretty easily. So if 1 is the best, 2 might be slightly under, 3 might be, this color, and then 4 might be orange, yellow, and 5 might be orange. So this is kind of, a guide. We can update these whenever we want. And when we come to Tesla, we could say, oh, that's, trading like it's going out of business. I like the fundamentals. Let's give it a 2. And if you want to supplement that with some notes as well, you can do so. So you have that note label here, and you can type in Tesla is a huge buy. I don't think that, by the way, just for example. So you can do a lot of stuff in here, and the custom labels are really great. One of the things that we've been thinking about for our roadmap as well is custom labels right now are kind of bound to the watch list. So you can look at them on a quarterly, trailing, and annualized basis. Obviously, it would unlock a lot of value if you could see a time series of that custom kind of data series that you've built, whether that's in the screener, whether that's in the charts. So being able to create a custom formula and then pull it up on a chart for a company, that would be awesome. So that's something that we hope to be able to do at some point. It's on the roadmap, but really excited to start working on that. Yeah, I think that covers it for my 3 personal favorite things. So that was sharing, watch this news, and custom formulas. And the last thing I want to do before we jump into Q&A is just run through all of the places that you can actually utilize Watchlist in, because there are a few. So I won't spend too much time on each one. The market movers dashboard, for example. Up here, I might repeat myself a few times saying this because it's present in a lot of the features I'm going to show you. But you can suck in an index, ETF constituents, and a watch list into loads of different tools of Koyfin, and the market movers is one of those. So you can see here I have that portfolio watch list in there. I think the default we set it to is the S&P, so that you can see the kind of intraday trading ranges of the benchmark, and you get this nice little scatter chart here as well. Super useful. And you can use that to pull in watch lists. Custom dashboards. So as opposed to like the pre-made dashboards that we create for you, you have the ability to create custom ones. Just an FYI, a few months ago, we had a webinar on custom dashboards specifically, and then we also have a masterclass video on our YouTube as well. Would recommend checking those out because we take you from kind of A to B of building these things, and it utilizes chart templates and watch lists. Really great feature. But if you remember that watch list that I built, I showed you earlier, it was the Bitcoin ETF funds. I've just basically took that watch list, put it into a dashboard, built some charts around it. And now I can see that here's IBIT's daily fund flow, here's grayscales, not looking so hot, and then here's just a chart of the kind of AUM over time. Down here, we have that macro inflation watch list. I've just duplicated it so that I can show two different charts. So here's headline, and then here's month over month. And I can quickly just add different securities to that, different inflation rates to that for different countries, and view it like that. And I won't go through the whole rigmarole of creating a brand new one, but just to give you kind of a flavor, if you've never built one before, how you create a dashboard is you would come in here, you can choose any of these options here, but I'm just going to create a blank one. How it works is you have components. I think at most, I think you can squeeze maybe 6 to 8 components in here if you make them smaller. But if I go to the watch list table, that's usually kind of what powers all of the other components in the dashboard. So let's go to portfolio here. So now we have all of our portfolio companies, and here we can drag this and make it big or make it small. And we have some options here as well. So let's grab a news tab and let's push it into the corner. So now we just have news coming through this little widget during the day. You might want a chart in here, which shows historical price. Let's take PayPal. So we can show price in there, or we can actually pull in one of our chart templates as well. Let's say margins. There we go. We can see that PayPal's margins are getting destroyed. We can add another chart in here. Maybe we just want price. And in the middle, we can take another chart template if there's anything interesting. Free cash flow per share versus price. Maybe that's an interesting one. I think I set this up with a white line on a black background, so that might not be super useful. Shares outstanding change. Yeah, something like that. You can quickly build a view in these custom dashboards and utilize your watch lists, but then also in the market dashboards as well, you can save these as watch lists. Other areas that you can use these in the analytics tab include the earnings calendar. So if I want to quickly, figure out the next 7 days of earnings coming in for the S&P, that's all well and great. But I can also do that for watch lists as well. Oops. Yeah, so this has just loaded up the S&P watch list here. And if I want to change that to my portfolio, for example, and change it to the next 90 days, I can see all of the dates that they're expected to report earnings. Lots of charts as well. Similar function to what I showed you with market movers. The lots of charts feature we also have a great video on, but super useful if you're looking at kind of smaller baskets of companies and you just want to see the same view over time. So this is an ETF watch list, for example, and I have a chart template set up for fund flows by the looks of it. I can also come over here to the S&P and I can change the chart template to normalize performance. Prices, where you might have something like price and volume, price targets. You've got margins here as well. Like I know I could pull those out from a 10-year basis. Yep, so you can quickly view like the same chart template, but just over a really big number of securities. And the watch lists are great for that because it's obviously the baskets of securities that you're interested in looking at. And the last one, which I think is, again, the last word I'll use it, but underutilized. I think the last one where watch lists are not used as often as they should be is the advanced transcript search. So advanced transcript search in a nutshell allows you to search through the entire library of Koyfin transcripts. And you can either do that by using keywords or, refining the investment universe. But if you just have a basket of securities that you're really interested in reading through transcripts for or searching for specific terms, you can come down here to the securities list. And again, that same functionality, indices, ETF constituents, watch lists. If I have one in here that might be interesting, luxury stocks is a watch list populated with luxury stocks that I think are interested in. We might want to change the time period for the last 10 years. And we might want to type in the word Chinese, like Chinese consumer, Chinese economy. We could also kind of do if or and China as well, but China is a big part of a lot of the forward growth of these companies. So interested in hearing what they're saying. I can jump in here looking at Hermès. I can see all the instances where Chinese is being mentioned. Can go down the feed and see Kering and Tapestry and Estee Lauder. So yeah, super useful. But I think I'll stop there. I feel like we've went from the basics, showed you all the areas that you can use the watch list in. But if there's any specific questions you want to ask as well, I'm going to have a look. I'm going to have a look at the Q&A section here and see if we have any questions. Any chance of getting transcript recordings in Koyfin? This one is from Stephen. So it's an interesting one. Some people have expressed to us in the past that they wouldn't mind having or they would like to have audio transcripts in Koyfin. It's not something we're actively working on right now, but it's something that's definitely possible. If you feel like you'd really like that, it might be worth jumping into the feedback section up here, allowing other Koyfin users to vote on it, because we do base a lot of our customer roadmap on those feature suggestions and the relative popularity of them. So if people are screaming at us to add audio transcripts, we'll definitely consider it. But yeah, the short answer to that is we're not working on it right now, but it's it's in the realm of possibility. Yeah. Any other questions, feel free to send them in. I don't mind demonstrating things as well if you have like a specific thing in mind too. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate that. Cool. It looks like Rob's answered a bunch of your questions during the Q&A as well, which is great. Doesn't seem like we have too many more coming in after the call, which is totally fine. I'm assuming Rob did a great job there, but if we don't have any other come in, then I'm happy to let everyone get on with the rest of their day. Hope this has been useful for you all, and feel free to let us know either emailing us what you would like the next webinar topic to be as well.
Hey, Connor. We have I guess we opened up the chat this time around. We never did that before, and so a lot of questions were in the chat. So just have a question here on custom formulas, whether we have a library of them, is the question that Aloy has.
Got you. So we don't have an existing library of custom formulas publicly today. Like it's not something that we actively look at as well because the user is creating those. So they're kind of, I wouldn't say it's like a privacy thing, but like if the user creates a custom formula, it's theirs. It's not kind of our place to like share those amongst. But if, maybe in someday if there's more of a communal focus in Koyfin where people could, offer their custom formulas and people could, use those and share those. It's the short answer is it's not something that exists today. There isn't a public library of custom formulas. But we do our best to kind of through these webinars and through our YouTube videos and tweets and such, like highlight great custom formulas we think would be useful. Like, excluding stock-based comp from free cash flow is a pretty basic one, but there's other ways to do that as well. But yeah, no public record of them today, but there could be in future.
And then, and related to that, Red is asking if there's a way to copy custom formulas from one watch list to the next, besides duplicating it.
Yeah, so I'll just be candid here and say duplicating is the best way to do it. I know it's not the perfect workaround. We're still working on easier ways to kind of transition a custom formula into another watch list. But at the moment, the existing best thing to do is just duplicate that watch list, and then you'll duplicate everything else that's in it. It would be ideal if, like a view, you could just import the custom formulas, or they are just kind of global. But the concept of kind of global views and stuff, it's a long story, but basically the answer is the best way to do it right now is duplicating, but we are working on ways on making that process smoother.
And then another question from let's see, Mauricio is asking about price alerts outside the US. And second question from Oscar about custom formulas as time series.
Okay, could you repeat the first one again?
Price alerts outside the US.
Yeah, okay, so international price alerts, do we have them? No. Will we have them in the future? I think it's something we definitely want in the future. Like kind of like North America international parity is something we talk about a lot. It's not something we're going to have in the next month or 2 months, but it's something we definitely want, and it's on the roadmap as well as loads of other kind of international parity related features. And the second question on the time series of custom formulas. What was the specific question? Was it just do we have that, or when are we planning that?
Yeah, just do we have that, and are we planning that?
Yeah, so sure. A time series of custom formulas. So, building a custom formula putting it on a chart, showing it over 10 years, showing it in the FA section, the abbreviation for financial analysis. We don't have it today, but I said earlier in the webinar, it's something that's on our roadmap, and it's something I'm super excited about personally working on, because I think it's a pretty, from kind of like a user perspective, it seems pretty simple, but there's a lot of work that goes into that, but it will unlock a lot of value for Koyfin users. So we are working on it. It's on the roadmap, and we'll be super excited when that one goes live.
Yeah. Cool. And then I think in the chat we have, let's see, a question on just the brokerage firms that are covering consensus.
Yeah, I think I've seen that one. Sorry, there's just so many items in the
Yeah.
chat. Basically, when we're looking at consensus right now, today, we won't break that down by broker. We won't say like Morgan Stanley has this rating and, with the context and stuff. So it doesn't exist today. It's anonymized, if you will, but we give you the high level numbers. It is a data set that, most of the things that we can do in Koyfin, it's a case of, acquiring the data set, implementing it, and it's always a decision of kind of balancing those resources. But it is a common one. It's something that people ask quite a lot. So it's something that's on our minds. Again, it's not like in this quarter or next quarter's roadmap. But if enough people express interest in it, we definitely think about adding it. But it is something we want long term because it's great information.
And then question on API access, which I'll just answer that we don't have because of data restrictions. And then maybe Jordan is asking for like a rough roadmap. Maybe you can talk about the stuff that we'll be releasing over the next kind of month or two.
Yeah, so some things that we're working on over the next couple of months. Model portfolios is a big one. We have loads of great stuff coming there. But if we're like broker integration, custodial integration, I should say, we're working on, we just shipped those exposure exhibits as well. With model portfolios, there was a lot of interest in that. We actually have a second portfolio feature that we're working on, which should hopefully be shipped. I don't want to, yeah, okay. It will hopefully be shipped this month. So really looking forward to working to getting that one out because I've been working on it personally, and it's looking really great. We'd love to show you a sneak preview of that closer to the time. Some other
Can you just
things.
describe what that is?
Okay, yeah, sure. So we have model portfolios today, and that existed primarily when we first built it. We thought, this is a great way to kind of simulate portfolios, maybe with more of an advisor user persona in mind. But we found that a lot of people are using them in unique ways that we didn't really think of, which is great when you put a product in the hands of users. But there's another unmet kind of need amongst investors, which that one doesn't directly kind of cover because it has a different use case. And that is, I have 4 portfolios. They're all with different brokerages. And for me to aggregate those in one space and view them as like one pie, and then also look at them as, individual accounts, I'm using Excel for that, or I'm using Google Sheets for that. And when we spoke to people, we found that, people from all spectrums of the kind of experience level, net worth, whatever, like a lot of them are using Excel, which is awesome because Excel is like a Swiss Army knife itself, but really you should have a better tool to be kind of looking at your portfolio from a high level. There's some other, I won't say great, but there's some other features out there that do that, but we wanted to try and, build that for Koyfin users. So it's really going to be more focused on your kind of individual holdings and aggregating those in one space and being able to see kind of exposure breakdowns and things like that. Yeah. And I should say as well, it introduces a lot of new functionality into Koyfin, which previously didn't exist. So 2 of my favorite ones were individual lot entry. So now when you're kind of building your portfolio, you have all your nice pie charts and tables and stuff, but you'll be able to add individual lots to this portfolio. So you can not only see the aggregate P&L or whatever it might be, but you can also see it on a lot level too. So that's awesome. The other one as well, when we were building this, we were thinking about, US investors owning US stocks, but then there's also people like me on the island of Scotland who, buy US stocks, but they have a pound denominated brokerage. So having FX adjusted P&L, which is the correct P&L, that's something we were kind of big on as well. So we'll have like FX adjusted P&L for people that are investing in other stocks, and it uses the appropriate FX rate from the time of purchase to the current day and all that kind of stuff. So it was really fun working on that. But that's portfolio analytics. We'll have more to say about that in a few weeks. Another project that I'm kind of in the ideation phase of right now, which a lot of people ask about, is insider transactions. So today in Koyfin, we show you institutional holdings at a point in time. So I can go and see, hey, Vanguard owned 12% of Berkshire or Apple or something like that. But we don't show it on a time series. So we want to improve our institutional holdings data so we can show it on a time series. So I can go into the small cap I'm interested in and see which funds are buying it and over what time, and what the transactions look like. Are they selling it into the fourth quarter, all that kind of stuff. And then also insiders as well. So, C-suite members, CEOs, all that kind of stuff. We don't actually have that data inside of Koyfin today. And we want to introduce it with kind of the institutional improvements that we want to make. So you can see when insiders are buying, you can see what percentage of the company they own. You can see whether it's kind of a grant or if it's like a open market purchase, and we'll attach all the filings to it. I've just been spending a lot of work on that because I think it'll be really great. And so many people have been asking us about it. Some other things on the roadmap. I don't know if there are any that are coming off the top of your head, Rob, that maybe you want to speak to.
No, I think the
Yeah.
portfolio analytics kind of like feature, and a lot of people kind of like while you were speaking, were asking about functionality that relate to portfolio analytics. So that's kind of one that definitely is going to be super exciting. And then yeah,
I did. Yeah. Oh,
that's
sorry, go ahead.
that's the one.
I did see one. I think we'll have to be, it's important to communicate now as well, just so that people, when you're excited about portfolio analytics. I think one question that was asking about return metrics for portfolio analytics. So the way that we thought about this, each product goes through an iteration. Like there's a V1, there's a V2. V1 of portfolio analytics is really going to be focused on, you could call it a current portfolio or a static portfolio. So it's going to be all of your current holdings, and we'll show you like the 1 day change, but it's not going to include time series performance. So it's not going to be something you can compare to your brokerage and say, hey, here's my 10-year CAGR total return. The primary focus for V1 is going to be exposure, and breaking down all of the exposure and giving you your lot level. And it's going to be focused on P&L as well, as opposed to the returns. We'll have total returns on the security level, but as far as the portfolio is concerned, it's a big project to be able to accurately calculate, including all of the historic transactions, the total return for a portfolio at the level that would be, so somewhat comparable to a brokerage. So it was outside of the scope for V1. So just bear that in mind. And then in V2, we're going to be looking at, whether it's simulated performance, allowing you to then add historic transactions, so previous buys and sells, maybe even information on the fees per transaction as well. But that's something we're building up to, but it's not something we could accomplish in V1 because the scope of that project would be huge. And that's something we quickly realized when we kind of broke it down. But V1 is going to be static portfolio. V2 is then when we're going to start kind of putting the work in on doing that. Any other questions coming in? Some great questions here, by the way. I appreciate all of them. Someone asked, will there be a recording of this? Yes, we'll email everyone a recording of this as well, either tonight or tomorrow morning, depending on what time zone you're in. Will be to include backtesting capability. So I'm assuming here that you're talking about portfolio analytics. So I have some opinions on this. Maybe you might agree if you're talking about backtesting. So just to give you context, when we first launched model portfolios, when I said people used it in ways we didn't expect, backtesting was one of them, because to have like a true backtest, you need delisted security data. So if you're actually backtesting for a strategy, whether it's like momentum or whatever it might be, if you don't have delisted security in there, you're going to get kind of obfuscated results. They're not going to be accurate because it might include, stocks that performed really well and then just went out of business, and then you have survivorship bias. So people are using model portfolios as like a backtesting tool. It's not really built for that. Backtesting in general as a tool, as a feature set in Koyfin, is something that we are interested in, not in the immediate term, but it's something that we are interested in. But it would be its own separate tool specifically or backtesting because it doesn't really belong in model portfolios. It doesn't really belong in portfolio analytics. But the one point I will make here is that delisted security data does kind of belong in there. Maybe not specifically for backtesting, but if you have a portfolio and you used to own a stock 5 years ago that went bust, but it still kind of contributed towards your total return for your portfolio, you're going to want that to be included. So we're listening to that and we appreciate that, but something we're thinking about. But yeah, we're aware of all these things. But as far as backtesting in V2, we won't have backtesting in V2 for portfolio analytics. Cool. Yeah, we still do have a little bit of time. If you do have any last minute questions, feel free to fire them in. I don't have to be anywhere. Otherwise, I'm happy to let everyone get on with their day, unless I can see some last questions pop in. Cool. Doesn't look like there's any other questions, but as always, you're free to email us. If you want to email Rob, it's rob@koyfin.com. Mine is connor.mcneil@koyfin.com. Good luck spelling that. I'm also, if you can DM the Koyfin Twitter account, that's me 99% of the time, so I'll respond to you there. But we're always happy to kind of respond to emails. But yeah, keep in touch. Let us know what you want for the next webinar. We'll be happy to cover it. And hopefully we'll see you next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.